My name is Jake Shane. So lately, I can't get enough of guitarist Derek Trucks. If you don't know him, he is, for my money, the best slide guitarist to ever live. And he's the nephew of drummer Butch Trucks, who you might know because he was one of the founding members of the Allman Brothers Band. Okay, so first I'd like to talk a little bit about slide guitar and my journey with it that is ongoing. And then I want to talk about transcription and the development of style. So let's see how we get on. Slide guitar originated in blues and gospel music from the Mississippi Delta, and the first recordings of slide guitar from the early 1920s. Back then, guitarists would use a pocket knife or a glass medicine bottle or some other type of bottleneck to slide across the strings instead of fretting the instrument. The slide enabled them to play not only the 12 notes of Western music, but also microtones in between each note. And of course, the human voice is also capable of doing this. Well, I think that the ability of slide guitar to emulate vocal lines is largely why slide guitar playing can sound so emotive, and often a lot more emotive than just regular guitar playing that you see in your everyday life. You might have heard the famous song by Blind Willie Johnson, recorded in 1927, called Dark Was the Night, Cold Was the Ground. That's what's playing at the moment. It's one of the 27 songs that is currently hurling through interstellar space on the Voyager spacecraft. For the recording, it's said that Johnson used a penknife to slide across the strings. As I've become more serious about slide guitar, I've started transcribing solos by people like Blind Willie Johnson and Derek Trucks. So transcription is the act of listening to a piece of music and perhaps also watching it being performed and transcribing what's played. It's a completely different way of listening to music, analytical instead of for pleasure, and it's immensely helpful in achieving a deeper understanding of a song. It allows me to dissect the idiosyncrasies of people's playing style and, in essence, kind of learn how they, quote, think when they're playing. Of course, you're not thinking too much while you're playing if you're doing it well, but it's kind of trying to discover what sort of habits the guitarists have ingrained in themselves, and that's eventually what comes out when they're playing. Here's a little bit of Derek's playing as he's sitting on stage next to B.B. King and John Mayer in 2012. After the solo finishes, B.B. King puts his hand on Derek's shoulder and says to him,
"That's about as good as I've ever heard it."
"That's about as good as I've ever heard it." I'm not sure a higher compliment could ever have been given. Coming straight from the king of the blues, B.B. King. When I transcribe a piece of music, I can better discern what scales the guitarist uses, which notes he favors, and certain patterns of notes he repeats. But the notes and the order in which they're played don't tell the whole story. We all have access to the same notes, but it's the way in which they're played which reveals the real style of the player. Things like the phrasing of the notes, meaning their rhythm and timing, the dynamics with which they're played, ranging from very soft to very loud, the attack of both the left and right hands, and with slide guitar especially, the use of vibrato, microtones, string choice, combinations of slid and fretted notes, tone, intonation, the amount of pressure applied with the slide to the strings. There are a ton of subtleties that the notes in themselves don't reveal. Hidden in those non-tonal aspects of playing are many of the idiosyncrasies of style, and when I hear Derek Trucks, I know at once that it's him. His style is unique, and, well, at least I can't imitate it very well, even when I try. And I know it's him despite of, or maybe because of, his generic setup, which these days isn't so generic. You've got guitarists using a bunch of pedals and effects all the time, but Trucks just takes his guitar, plugs it into an amp, puts a glass slide on his finger, and voila, you have the Derek Trucks sound. Now, of course, if I do that, I don't sound anything like Derek Trucks. And he doesn't play a million notes a second either. In fact, you could conceivably sing just about anything he plays, which, it turns out, is one of his secrets, I think. And he largely uses the same scales as millions of other guitarists: major and minor pentatonic, mixolydian, and the blues scale. So, how does he manage to sound like himself? Here, Derek is playing the song Soul Serenade live in 2010. It sounds so good. The thing is, I don't transcribe solos in order to play exactly like someone. I don't aim ultimately at imitation. I transcribe mostly to notice and analyze all of the little intricacies that add up to form a style. I'm interested in how Derek Trucks manages to evoke such emotion out of his guitar, and I want to take those concepts and apply some of them to my own playing, or at least experiment with them. I'm not so interested in playing his solos note for note, or taking all of his guitar riffs and using them for myself. I mean, maybe a few juicy riffs here and there would be nice. Um, but I'm not primarily looking at his playing so that I can play his solos exactly as he plays them. Rather, it's the concepts behind the playing that interest me. Concepts like his love of linear lines, his use of vibrato, his scale blending, frequency of picking notes, control of dynamics, masterful building of solos, his employment of space and silence, his variations on a theme, playing those singable lines with only the necessary notes. Concepts that can be explored and generalized and applied not just to a Derek Trucks solo, but to music in general. I aim to take the particulars and extrapolate them into universals. Of course, this examination of style is what all artists do. I spoke about this at length in episode 1 of the podcast, but it bears repeating. All artists are influenced by other artists, and that's a good thing. This also means that all artistic styles are influenced by other styles. By Derek Trucks' own admission, he was influenced by slide guitarists Elmore James and Duane Allman, as well as Indian classical music with its sarod players like Ali Akbar Khan, and devotional Sufi Qawwali music practitioners. And the thing is, if you listen closely, once you know that, you can hear those influences in his playing, but they all melt together and are transformed, along with countless other influences, to form the style of playing we instantly recognize as Derek Trucks. Great artists learn from every artist they encounter, and they aren't shy about it because they're confident in their own art and ultimately have their own style. Both beginners and mature artists imitate. The difference is, mature artists quickly blend their imitations in with their own style that has been developing throughout the years. They'll practice imitations in private, but never release a pure imitation for public viewing. This work of digesting art, like guitar transcription, for example, is done in private, but it is done, or should be done, by artists of every level, at every stage of their career. Of course, even Derek Trucks' own style has evolved over the years. He didn't burst from the womb fully formed, and I don't believe he's even arrived at his final incarnation as an artist yet. No great artist aims for the end of his development, the solidification of his style into stone. Artists cannot create in a vacuum. And just as we continue to grow as people throughout the years, hopefully, we should strive to continue growing as artists. Not by shirking study and imitation, but by embracing great art, digesting it, taking it, and throwing it into the ever-changing, ever-growing amalgam of magma that is our being, our artistry. Thanks a lot for listening. If you enjoyed this, it would be great if you shared it with a friend or two. And if you would like to support me, you can do so on Patreon. It really helps me as an independent artist continue to create and release things. And I also made a playlist of Derek Trucks songs, instrumental songs, that is on Spotify. I'll link to it. So again, thank you very much. I really appreciate it and hope to be back with a new episode soon. In the meantime, my new album, High Desert Hymns, is released on December 4th, so check that out. I'm quite happy with it, and I'm glad that I was able to record it in this year, 2020, the year where nothing really went as planned. All right, guys, till next time. Go dim. Oh, well, you'll hear them then. Those high desert hills, they say